Hello, Mr. Korea. I would just like to talk a little bit about what is happening in the world, the Middle East war, the Iran war. Uh, Many people probably are just thinking it as a war which will last for a few days or a few weeks now, maybe. But no, it will last for a long time. But I'm not here to talk about that. I already said that much earlier. Uh, this war is an era defining war, and that probably many people have not yet realized. It is the most significant war which has happened in our history since the Second World War, since 1945. This is the most significant war happening. Why it is significant? The stakes are very high. Iran, in a way, is fighting for the global south, for the rest of the world, you can say, even not just the global south. This has nothing to do with what the Iranian regime is. That is a different thing. What the Iranian regime is, and the people, how they feel about how the Iranian people feel about the Iranian regime. That's another thing. Uh, and how good or how bad the regime is. That's a different thing. But here, the war which US has started on behalf of Israel, one can easily argue. But that's a different thing anyway. That is also debatable because Israel can also be considered as a forward unit of US rather than rather than Israel dragging US. Those are debatable things. But the essence remains that it's an imperialistic strategy now from the US. US took just removed Venezuela's leader just like that. It thought that it could do that in Iran, and it is now regretting what it has done, opening up Pandora's box. And this is clearly an US has moved into an imperialist mode. There are, of course, several reasons for that as well, because faced with not that manufacturing prowess which it used to have, and faced with a rival like China, it is probably forced to resort to such tactics now because the usual conventional methods were not working anymore. And it is in a hurry to still remain to or again become the hegemon. So all these factors probably are contributing to this newly imperialistic strategy of US. And why I say it's Iran here is fighting for everyone is because if Iran loses, then US tomorrow will take India. Another day will want to take some another country. Yeah, whichever he is not happy with some leader that you are not doing whatever I ask you to do, I will take you over. There's no limit to that. It's crazy. It's absurd. So US here is in a way. Um, not just in a way, US has clearly, I mean, some time back, I think it was Marco Rubio who clearly, I think in Munich, he has said this that the Western powers, the colonial powers, were fools to uh, surrender themselves to independent struggles and communist or socialist revolutions across the world, even when they were having all these colonies. And now it's time to get back to that. Uh, so the stakes are very high. So if Iran, of course, loses this war, then US gets a green signal, a blank check to continue this strategy of imperialist expansion. Of course, until it meets its match probably in China, but till then at least. Uh, but if Iran wins, then also it's very interesting. Then what would happen is that the US implodes because it would not be possible for the US leadership. The political cost would be huge. And not only a huge political cost brings extreme dissatisfaction among people, brings a sense of humiliation for certain people, um, and an already polarized US, that polarization would become very, very sharp, and US would implode then. And eventually, not immediately, but eventually in a few years' time, my prediction is 2029, 30. But anyway, eventually, what would happen? Maybe my predictions timing would be wrong or whatever, but eventually, if you just look at it from a political science point of view, forget astrology. Eventually, what this implosion means is that the split of US. Now, how it would happen, whether it's a civil war or more peaceful means, or just some secessionist movements, but peacefully done, I don't know. I mean, I have not modeled that, and anyway, that's a different thing. But so if Iran wins, and by Iran winning, of course, Iran is not going to militarily defeat the United States. By Iran winning simply means it raises the cost so high for the US to continue this war, which it has been doing now, Iran. And if Iran can continue doing this for weeks and months and even, let's say, a year or and more, then basically US is forced to uh, either withdraw from the war and making its Arab allies angry. Where is that protection which it promised to them? Or it has to even remove its bases, which is Iran's demand, or accede to some other Iranian demands. In any case, it would be considered as a huge defeat of the US, because that's defeat. Yeah, just bombing someone, dropping bombs does not make you win. That there is no win in that. Just because you killed a lot of people. For example, Israeli strikes, even just to remove one man. For example, they do a lot of assassinations. They kill the whole neighborhood. They kill 500 people, 100 people, 200 people, just for one man. That indiscriminate killing is simply brutality, and there is no win in that. What strategic objectives have you achieved in that? What was your objective? Have you achieved that? So there is no win in that. Iran, in fact, is currently playing the game, playing the war very, very strategically. And Iran's aim should be to not to detract itself from what it has started. From Iran's point of view, it should prolong and widen the war. That's good for Iran. Israel also, ironically, wants to prolong and widen the war. Both want that for, of course, reasons at variance. US, on the other hand, of course, wants the war to end as soon as possible. It just stuck in there. It never thought that the war would last like that, and that is extremely foolish uh, of their military strategy advisors. Or maybe the advice was not listened to, because you don't win a country like Iran like this. It's just not possible, yeah, for anyone. Um, the geography, the culture, the history, the pride of the people, everything. Yeah, you cannot do that. So there is no possibility that US can win. The only thing is, uh, whether US can win only in one way. You can say that if Iran forgets what it has been doing brilliantly and gets seduced by any offer from the US prematurely and stops the war, then it's Iran which loses in fact. So actually, one says that peace should be there. Peace, of course, is good, but peace should always be a just peace. Here, if Iran's let's say tomorrow it suddenly stops the war prematurely, then it means that, yeah, of course, peace would come for some time, but that would be an unjust peace. That would be a murderer. That would be a murderous peace, actually, because then Iran would be given the green signal to US and Israel to attack it again when they have replenished their arms and reserves and everything, and then completely murder all the Iranians and all the people after a few months or maybe after a year or two. So I hope Iran does not make that mistake, and I hope that, not for Iran's sake, though of course I have all my sympathy for the Iranian people, and of course for their sake also I hope, but I hope especially for all the countries in the world, because as I said, if US wins it somehow, which is very unlikely, but if it does, um, then what it means is that a new imperialist, expansionist strategy in the world will come. And then to just end with, we have talked mostly about we have mostly talked from a political science point of view here. But if we were to talk a little bit astrology at the end, so anyway, I do not see imperialism uh, being there in the world right now. Imperialist tendencies will be there, which, for example, US is showing, Trump is showing, but I don't see them, yeah, right now. The time for that will come in 2000, late 2060s, in 2070s, and there will be a long 20, 30 year period in which really imperialist powers will emerge at that time. Empires again will emerge and all that, but that's far away ahead, the 2060s, 70s. um, for now I don't see that. I only see conflict and struggle, and especially, for example, in the month of April, a horrible month, a lot of fighting, a lot of violence. So anyway, um, so as I said, a lot of people are not probably realizing, or maybe they're just thinking about the crude shock, the Strait of Hormuz, and all that. But that is all fine, of course. Um, but the biggest thing about this war is that it's an era-defining war, whichever way the result goes. It defines the next era for our history. If Iran wins, then it leads to an implosion of the hegemon, or US is not the hegemon anymore, but still considered as the mightiest power, not tested. Maybe it is no longer the mightiest, but anyway, it leads to implosion of the United States, which leads to huge changes in the world order. It may or may not bring multipolarity, but it anyway leads to huge changes in the world order. And if the US wins, then then it emboldens US to do that to anybody, then uh, to whichever whomsoever it does not like, or whomsoever wants to grab because of greed. Because remember, after all, US is fighting Israel's war here. If it is doing so, if one argues that it is fighting Israel's war, then why is it doing so? Is it just because of the Jewish lobby in the US? No, it's because of oil. And so that's a major factor, probably, which made Trump linger in the war after killing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, because that was a good point when US could have exited. Immediately when they started the war, they killed Ali Khamenei, and at that time US could have said that, okay, it's up to you, Iranian people, now. See, I have removed Ali Khamenei. Now it's up to you to revolt and take power in your hands and do the needful if you are not happy with the regime. But it did not do that. It continued in the war. It did not take that very good off ramp, very good exit point. Probably because it became greedy for the oil. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to say something about the war. That's do not underestimate its importance in history. It's the most important war since the Second World War. It is a war whose significance is extraordinary. It may be playing out only in the Middle Eastern theater currently, at least, but its significance is for the entire world, and a huge significance. And most of us, actually, regardless of how we feel about the Iranian regime and the women's rights and whether they should wear hijab or not, that is, whether there should be mandatory or not, or how bad it is, or whatever, regardless of all that, most of us should, you can say, root for Iran, yeah, including Americans who love justice, yeah, and peace. They also should, uh, because otherwise, what you are welcoming, if America wins, as I said, you are welcoming an imperialist order, you are welcoming colonialism, which was a which has a brutal history, which has no place in, which is a shameful chapter of human history, colonialism. It is often glossed over. Its excesses are not taught very well, and the very idea of one human being lording over the other, one human culture lording over the other, saying that I am superior and I will teach you what to do and I am the better one, is aberrant. Which is what is happening now, and which is what Iran is resisting, and it is resisting very well. It is a very inspirational fight that Iran currently is leading, very, very, very strategically, very sound, militarily very brave, with the few resources it has against the mighty United States. And hopefully, most people in the world, whichever leaning they belong to, whether let's say they are Sunnis and don't like the Shias, or whether they are those let's say people who don't like any Muslims are demons for them. There are such people, for example. But whoever you are, whatever religion or affiliation of faith you belong to, it's not about Muslim, Christian, all this. It's not even about Muslim and Jew or anything. It is not even about Jewish religion. I think many Jews themselves are ashamed of this war which Israel is conducting. So it is about the basic principles of justice. Uh, um, Justice, harmony, balance. As I have said in another video before, while the one who is weak, they have to of course bide their time, uh, and resist as best as they can. If yeah, they are forced to submit, and sometimes they have to submit as well, depending on how much fight they can muster. At that time, they have to judge, but not unduly. Submission should only be the last resort. But the mighty also have to take care that they do not use their might to start trampling over us, because otherwise, if they do that, if then they start trampling over others, they will fall down. The A might raised on hubris does not last long. Bye bye.